Right, good afternoon. Thanks for clicking on to the Thursday, the 9th of November edition of Vogan's European Outlook. Hope everybody is well. The time here locally is 5 to 1 in Tokyo, 5 to 1 in the afternoon, that is, while back in the UK it is 5 to 4 in the morning. So by the time I release this video, it will be later in the day and a more appropriate time for viewers in the UK, Ireland and Western Europe. But a few folk have been asking what has been the weather conditions here in Tokyo. It's been an interesting weather situation actually. We did have a cold front moving off China across the Yellow Sea, the Japanese Sea as well, and that brought some fairly stormy conditions to the early portion of Tuesday morning, which was the time of arrival into Tokyo Haneda Airport. So you can see here, this is a chart here sent to me from Tomoki Suzuki. I hope that is the right pronunciation. Meteorologist based here in Tokyo, showing a storm system that brought record-breaking snowfall actually to parts of north and northeastern China in the last several days. That system then moved eastwards, like I say, across the Sea of Japan, and brought some fairly turbulent conditions. And this was the video that I captured as we approached Tokyo Haneda Airport. It's not a particularly great video, if I'm being honest, but it gives you a rough idea as to the conditions here. Nothing extreme, but certainly what we did have was a bit of a bumpy final approach into Tokyo Haneda. We came in around the greater Tokyo area and Tokyo Bay, and then they kind of took a loop around and we approached in from a northeasterly direction here. The general approach into Tokyo Haneda Airport is from a southeasterly direction straight across Tokyo Bay and right into the airport itself. But because of the wind conditions, we did have to come in from a northeasterly direction. You can see here quite a thick cloud deck and quite a low cloud base actually as we approached. Very windy, very strong crosswinds was present on a final approach, and we did have a little bit of turbulence, and you can see here the rain on the window of the plane, and you can see eventually we do come into land. Quite a wet runway as well, so it kicked up quite a lot of spray as we touched down, and then of course he hit the anchors, and we did come to a gradual slowdown. So it was an interesting landing, that's for sure, into Tokyo, and certainly you would not have thought, given the conditions that you can see here. This is a bridge crossing over linking the peninsula to the south side of Tokyo itself. Given the conditions that you can see on this video, you would not have thought it was going to be a hot, sunny and summer-like day in the area, that's for sure. So you can see here, this was the landing and the general conditions. This was at 7:35 local time after a lengthy 13-hour flight which crossed Europe over the Black Sea, skirting the north coast of Turkey, into Georgia, Armenia, Uzbekistan, across some pretty high mountains as well. I will share those in social media, some of the photographs that I took during our flight. And as you can see here, the spray kicking up as he touched down. And I must admit, it was quite nice to see land once again after such a long flight. But anyway, we did cross over into Kazakhstan, northern China. We actually fringed into the northwest of Mongolia, back into China once again, and then eventually we did a loop around the north side of Beijing, south, then out over the Yellow Sea, across the South Korean peninsula, Sea of Japan, and then across the mainland of Honshu Island in Japan. So yeah, like I said, you would not have thought that what was coming next took place given the conditions earlier in the morning. But Tokyo itself, I was quite chuffed actually that I happened to be in Tokyo on the very same day that we've seen the hottest temperature ever recorded for the month of November at 27.5 Celsius. It really was quite remarkable to leave a fairly chilly Scotland and UK to arrive back into summer-like conditions. So like I say, hottest day on record for Tokyo for the month of November at 27.5 Celsius. And, if you look at the situation that Japan has seen over the last several months, heatwave conditions has just been remarkable, extending all the way from June. This is a chart, by the way, of the temperature anomaly over Asia over the last several months. And you can see persistent cold across southwestern China, northern India. Most of China did see some fairly warm conditions, Mongolia as well as Kazakhstan, and of course the Koreas and Japan. So this is the month of June. You can see here for July, record-breaking heat was an ever-ending story. Then August was outstandingly hot, hottest on record for the greater Tokyo area. We've seen a temperature in excess of 32 Celsius every single day during August, which was pretty incredible stuff. Then September, record-breaking warm once again. And then into October, we did have some cooler conditions, especially across southern portions of the main island of Japan. And then, of course, the first week of November has been outstandingly warm across the majority of Japan. I think 800 or 900 station records have been set for the hottest day in record for the month of November, and indeed including Tokyo on Tuesday the 7th of the month. Very hot conditions across eastern portions of China. Again, that persistent cool, strangely enough, lingering over the southwestern portions of China. We had a cold and average first week in Mongolia and also southern eastern portions of Siberia, where we now have seen the first minus 40s of the year. And it looks as if we do have some fairly interesting conditions setting up over the next few days here in Tokyo. The sun is hazy today. It was quite nice yesterday. We were up the Tokyo Skytree, the third highest freestanding tower on the planet, and really to look over the vast urban expanse of Tokyo was pretty remarkable stuff. The greatest population center on the planet. I think the official population in Tokyo was around 37 point something million people, and the greater Kanto region, which includes the surrounding areas as well as Greater Tokyo, I think they've got somewhere in excess of 40 to 42 million people that reside in this very packed area of the planet. So quite interesting place to visit, that's for sure. We are going to hopefully get the Shinkansen, which is the bullet train, to possibly Osaka, maybe Kobe in the next few days. We're also going to take a trip to the Hakone region, which is a national park, mountainous area, beautiful place, hopefully early next week as well. But the temperatures are going to go from 27.5 on Tuesday, possibly in the next few days, down as low as a high of 13 Celsius in this area of Japan. So quite a significant temperature drop is coming to this region of the world, all courtesy of another cold front that will move off China, cross over the Sea of Japan, and bring a significant temperature drop to this part of the world. So as you can see here, this is the view for East Asia. So if to give you some reference, we can see here that this is China. This is the Koreas. I know it's a bit difficult to see. This is North and South Korea, Sea of Japan, and then here's Japan itself. Notice here there is an area of low pressure up towards the north side of North Korea and bordering Siberia. What we've got is some very cold air, actually some very cold air extending across this region. What that area of low pressure is going to do is it's going to move eastwards and introduce not only some fairly heavy rainfall to the Koreas and also into Japan. This is by the time we reach tomorrow, Friday, and you can see here that heavy precipitation is moving through Japan. So it's going to be some fairly messy conditions here. And then as that frontal system then moves out into the West Pacific, you increase that cold air coming off the mainland of Asia and into Japan. So if we look at the temperature anomaly chart here, there is quite a shock to the system coming up for us here in Tokyo and the rest of the country. So very warm conditions, as you can see here, across eastern China, across the Koreas, across Japan, ahead of that frontal system, nice warm southerly winds continuing to drive record-breaking warm temperatures. Temperatures high, by the way, as 30 Celsius in the outskirts of Tokyo in recent times. But then as that frontal system moves through, there comes that bitterly colder out of Siberia, crossing eastern Mongolia, northern China, and eventually it reaches us here in Japan by the time we reach Saturday. And then that colder air will continue to filter in and bring a significant drop in the temperature. So that is a little bit about the weather that I'm experiencing here in Japan. I will continue to update you over the next few days with regards to conditions, but let's have a look and see what's happening with regards to Europe at this moment in time. So of course, low pressure continues to dominate. We're seeing some cooler polar maritime air getting drawn in to the south of the system. So we are seeing some hill snow as well as low level rainfall. And what is going to take place is we're going to continue to see low pressure dominate the pattern, but we have got a bit of a gap developing towards the end of the week and the end of the weekend here. So as we play this loop off the ECMWF, high pressure to the north, sending that area of low pressure southbound, plenty of shower activity around that circulation. But as you can see here, we move into the day, later Friday into Saturday. Before we get to the next frontal system moving in from the west, we will have clear skies, light winds, and a widespread frost, I think, and probably the coldest night of the autumn so far in several spots within the UK. Then a frontal system moves in. Notice here that it's forced to the south thanks to the presence of higher pressure, between Greenland and Scandinavia. So therefore, that is driving that system southbound. Then we've got, according to the ECMWF, another series of fronts moving in during the early and middle portion of next week. Could see some relatively deep areas of low pressure, but deep, it doesn't compare, of course, with Storm Kieran. And then Domingos, I think, was the secondary feature that moved in, bringing more damage and winds to parts of France, and considerably low pressure compared to what you would typically expect, especially further south you go. The persistency and high pressure across the north has been very notable indeed. Of course, yesterday's video I looked at the longer term in terms of the second half of November and slightly beyond that. We will look at the long range models probably in the next video. There will be a global weather report this upcoming Sunday as well, by the way, so stay tuned for that. Still plenty of content despite the fact that I'm halfway around the world at the moment. I'm still trying to provide you with as much content as possible. We will look, like I say, at the longer term because it's quite interesting. But certainly, CFSV2, the GFS ensemble, starting to show a change in the North American pattern. Stronger heights across that continent indicates that we would have the pull westwards of the trough out into the Atlantic and higher pressure developing over Europe. But it doesn't necessarily shut down the storm track entirely, but it looks as if we may hint at something a little bit drier towards the end of the month, but we'll have to wait and see. The NAO and the AO looks as if it's going positive, the NAO looks as if it's going to remain neutral as we go forward. And then as we play through the loop, you notice here that there is a little bit more tendency for higher pressure to try and nose in off the Atlantic rather than this dominant firm low pressure dominated pattern. Looks as if higher pressure is going to at least make an attempt at trying to move northwards as we go towards the second half of this month. So I kind of wanted to finish off today's video by looking a little bit at the El Nino situation, because it looks as if we are seeing a little bit of a strengthening of the El Nino over the Far East Pacific. So of course I talked about in the last couple of weeks about a strong westerly wind burst over and to the west of the dateline and then extending eastwards. Now what is interesting about all this is the fact that we've got strengthening of warming over the Far East Pacific, and this would end up making you think, well, we're going to see an east-based El Nino this upcoming season, but not necessarily. Interesting tweet here by Spot On Weather indicates that it's amazing the interest in how the MEI, which is the multivariant Enso index response, actually decreased instead of increasing. And this is a reflection of encompassing not only the SSTs in the Pacific, but also the atmospheric response. And it looks as if we are seeing quite a different situation compared to the 83, the 87, 92, 98, and 2016 strong to super